Welcome to Outside the Hashmarks, Episode 3. Ken Dietz is out on assignment, which means he's at parent-teacher conference. Setting in for him tonight is Ryan Cheevers. Ryan, you're used to being on the other side of the camera. Talk to me about how it feels being on this side of the camera tonight.
I mean, we're just getting started, so you can ask me in about 45 minutes. I don't feel too comfortable, but I will say this. Shout out to Joel. He is directing tonight. Ricky is managing one of the cameras. We got a team of people behind here that make this happen. So we're grateful to them for being here. I'm okay. I feel a little uncomfortable though.
We'll get you there. We'll get you there. This is really close. We also got Goob back there. He's supporting the show tonight.
Yep.
But Ryan, we had some first round playoff matchups last week in the area, and it was a tough week for local football teams. And we're going to kick it off. Niles versus Zeeland West, the defending Division III state champs, came into Niles and got the victory last week. At times, Niles dominated that football game, but they had a big turnover on an interception. They fumbled a kickoff return, and that ended up being the difference in the football game. Niles goes down to defeat, but what a wonderful season, 9-0 for the first time since 1979. Talk to me a little bit about that game, Ryan.
Well, Coach Shaw took the high road, certainly afterwards. You know, he was probably naturally a little bit upset with the pairing, but as he said, look, we have to play this team anyways. I think it's just discouraging for Niles because, you know, they give up the last 16 points of the game. They kind of had control of it. Turnovers played a big part of it. And, you know, West is tough. I mean, West is used to being in these games, so they're moving on.
Well, and one thing I was worried about last week was just the difference in competition. Zeeland West plays some of the best teams in the state in Grand Rapids. Niles plays a tough schedule, but it's a different level of competition. It seemed to show last week. Niles had plenty of opportunities to win that football game. They just came up short, but a big shout out to the Niles Vikings.
9-0, man.
9-0, right?
That's a big deal. It's just the last two games of their season they sputtered a little. We saw the game before that. Not their best performances, but it's fun. I mean, to see Niles football relevant and doing so well, like they're becoming a powerhouse. It's just they met a team that's used to being in those big games, and St. Joe's going to have a rough time too when they see West this Friday. Tomorrow night.
That's definitely going to be a tough football game, but it wasn't the only game in the area. We also had Paw Paw versus Three Rivers. That was a rematch from a few weeks ago. Paw Paw won that game 43-0. No Ben Miller, the all-time leading rusher for Paw Paw. What a difference that made. Paw Paw ends up losing that football game to Three Rivers. That's an upset, 21-14. They just couldn't put offense together. They give up big plays. All three of the scores for Three Rivers were on big touchdown runs. Talk to me a little bit about that game, Ryan.
Well, I mean, they jump out 7-0. You know, Three Rivers answers 14-7. You thought it was going to be a shootout, and then it turns out defense kind of hung in there, and 21-14 final felt low scoring. I don't know if there was a bigger upset, especially in Southwest Michigan, than that one last week. I mean, to blow a team out, then host them in the playoffs and you know, come up short like that. Mason Awe, big touchdown, 80-yard touchdown run late in the game, kind of broke the back for Paw Paw. So that's a shocker, and we'll see where Three Rivers goes from here.
Yeah, so now we're going to get Three Rivers in Pittsburgh. They're going to play each other in the district championship, and I don't know that anybody thought we were going to get that matchup, but Ben Miller had over 3,600 yards rushing. You just can't lose a player like that and expect to have the same level of offense.
Right.
That was a tough night for Paw Paw, and unfortunately, Three Rivers was able to get the win.
Yeah, very tough night for Paw Paw. I think they were the better team. I think they play 10 times. They probably win 8, but they got beat, and that's the playoffs. So they're home, and Three Rivers is moving on.
Well, this one hurts my heart a little bit. I am a Dowagiac Chieftain, and from the start of that football game, Goob, you know, we were watching it. That game was over before it started. Berrien Springs came out and crushed Dowagiac. At one point, they were winning 34-6. Dowagiac moved the football, but they couldn't put drives together over a long period of time. And Braylon Hurst, the quarterback for Berrien Springs, he has speed to burn. Dowagiac could not run with him during the football game. Ryan, talk to me a little bit about Berrien Springs Dowagiac, another loss for a local team.
Yeah, I think, you know, I kind of look at what Dowagiac, I mean, is it Quentin Hill? their running back?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. He rushes for 156 yards, 2 scores. Dowagiac outgains Berrien Springs for the game, and they come up short. So it just was one of those games, one of those nights where I think Berrien Springs just played better defense, and Dowagiac again. I probably would pick Dowagiac. If they play 10 times, 6, 7 times, I think Dowagiac's going to beat Berrien Springs. But again, wasn't their night.
Well, unfortunately, Dowagiac has a little bit of a Berrien Springs problem. Berrien Springs has consistently beat them the last couple years. I bet with my heart last week.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to continue to do that, but Berrien Springs was the better football team. We can talk about all the yards that they outgained. Dowagiac had more yards than Berrien Springs, but a lot of that came at the end of the football game. Yeah. And unfortunately, the Chieftain season comes to an end. But we got another game in the area. Edwardsburg and Vicksburg. That's a rematch. They just played 3 weeks ago, and Vicksburg won that football game. Edwardsburg played really well against Niles a couple weeks ago. We thought they were kind of turning the corner, and then they give up 43 points to Vicksburg. A bunch of big plays all over the field. Just talk to me a little bit about the Eddies in Vicksburg.
I was surprised by this. I don't know how you felt. I thought the Eddies were in a position where we watched them when they played Niles, and they didn't look very good. I thought they would bounce back. They like the playoffs. They usually are making big runs here, but Vicksburg, I think, is the better team. They had bigger plays, and they're moving on. So it's interesting that we got Niles, Edwardsburg, 2 big football, we can call them powerhouses, and they're watching from home this Friday. And Vicksburg and Three Rivers, are moving on.
Well, and Coach Dan Purley was on the show a couple weeks ago, and he talked about only having 4 seniors, and it showed. And they had issues on defense most of the season. They just keep giving up big plays. Vicksburg took advantage of it, scored 43 points, and Vicksburg comes out on top. And now Vicksburg versus Three Rivers in the district championship, the game we all thought we were going to get, right?
Right. Oh, for sure. Yeah, we all predicted that in our bracket challenges, right? Those 2 teams playing in the district finals. Yeah, it's wild, but that's the playoffs. Again, one quarter, one play can change everything. And so not what anyone expected, but here we are.
Here we are. But we did have one winner in the area in southwestern Michigan. St. Joe did defeat Zeeland East. St. Joe, I'll put it this way. They got a good draw. They got the worst of the 2 teams from Zeeland. They got Zeeland East. And St. Joe put a game together. And they put a game together on defense, somewhere they've struggled the whole season. They've been giving up big plays, a lot of points, but not last week. They only give up 6 points. St. Joe's offense did just enough to win that football game. Ryan, I know you watched this game. Talk to me a little bit about St. Joe and Zeeland East.
Well, here's the thing. I was at a Halloween party, and the game was on in the other room. So Halloween party, checking in. Every time I went into the other room to check in, I felt like I was watching St. Joe's defense bring the house. I don't know what Prattley told these guys, but they seemed to blitz every play. They made it very difficult. They had 6 sacks. They held East scoreless for the last 3 quarters. St. Joe's given up a ton of points this year. So I don't know if this is something that West needs to be afraid of going into the next game. But that was a pretty cool performance from Prattley's defense. We haven't seen them do anything like that this season on the defensive end. So, but Zeeland East was missing their best player, Isaiah Boonstra. He was out, and so that made a big impact. But everyone's banged up late in the year. So, St. Joe seems healthy. Maddox Murphy going to Bowling Green. He helped to carve up some big holes on the offensive line. And then Caden LeClaire, Ish Dixon. We've said these names before. Really good players. We're not making any predictions coming up tomorrow night with West, but if you're looking at a St. Joe game that could be one of those hey, this is the St. Joe team you don't want to play, that was that type of game with East. So I'm a St. Joe guy, and I like what I saw. It was fun to watch.
Well, and if you're St. Joe, you got a little payback on your mind because Zeeland West absolutely destroyed St. Joe in the playoffs last year on their way to playing for the Division III state championship game. I'm not positive that St. Joe is going to have enough on offense or defense to win that football game. But like you said, the defense played better. The offense found enough points. They're going to have the perfect football game in order to beat Zeeland West this week.
So what was it? A couple weeks ago, Portage Central came to St. Joe. They had no chance. St. Joe had no. We talked about it. If St. Joe could score one touchdown, get a score on the board, that would be a big win for them. Tomorrow night, it's different though. Like St. Joe, if you say St. Joe pulls off an upset, I wouldn't be completely surprised. Like I could see it. Do I think it's going to happen? Not necessarily, but like I think they have a chance in this game if they can limit West offensively. I think St. Joe puts themselves in a good position, especially playing at home, in front of the home crowd. Halloween, fans were scattered last week. You'll have a packed Dickinson Stadium tomorrow night, I think.
Well, and here's the thing, Ryan. You're a St. Joe guy. You grew up in St. Joe. You were an athlete at St. Joe, basketball and soccer. I love the hope. You have a lot of hope. I love the confidence that you have. It's going to take a lot to win that football game, and we'll see what happens next week, and we'll see how that one plays out.
Oh, man, I know. Can you imagine, though, if St. Joe winds up winning the district? And Niles is home, both Zeeland's schools are home. Be pretty wild.
Yeah, I think there'll be a petition to the MHSAA
probably.
to talk to them a little bit about some of the scheduling for the playoffs.
I know Ken Dietz is kind of on the other side of that argument versus us. I feel like there was a little bit of a misdrawing there. But, if St. Joe beats West tomorrow night, it doesn't matter, right?
No, it does not matter. And we'll see what happens tomorrow night at Dickinson Stadium.
That's going to be fun.
Joining the show, Detroit Country Day High School All-American and former Notre Dame and NFL wide receiver, Javin Hunter. Javin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me on.
Well, we're glad to have you on. Your high school career was kind of like a fairy tale book. What you did in high school was absolutely incredible. So in 1995, 1996, and 1997, you win basketball state championships at Detroit Country Day. You played with a guy by the name of Shane Battier, and I watched those games in 1996 and 1997. You were the best player on the floor. I believe in those championship games, you averaged about 22 points a game. I got highlights of you dunking, throwing no-look passes, just an incredible performance. You were a high school All-American in basketball. And then in football at Detroit Country Day, you guys win the state championship in 1995. You're a Parade and USA Today All-American in football. You did just about everything. You're a top 30 recruit in the country coming out of high school. Can you just talk to me about your career at Detroit Country Day and a little bit about high school sports and just how special that is?
Man, I appreciate that introduction. I forgot about all that stuff, man, trying to follow my sons around. But, man, high school was fun. Country Day, we had just a great athletic program, during those days. I think they're trying to get it back. But back then we were a powerhouse, man. Obviously, you mentioned Shane. Shane was ahead of the stake on the basketball court, and we just try to follow his lead. I got to give Shane his credit, man. Shane was like an adult as a kid, right? I mean, he had a 4.0. He would pull the coach at the end of practice, and I'm watching this, pull the coach at the end of practice and get extra shots up. I mean, he was a pro in high school, so I tried to follow him, and I was able to have some success on the basketball court. I was obviously extremely motivated and played basketball since first grade. So, that was my best sport, in my opinion, and my favorite sport. And then, follow my dad's lead on the football field, trying to emulate him. And, obviously my father played for the Lions for 7 seasons and, just wanted to be like him and wanted to play the game of football. He wouldn't let me play until 9th grade. And, I played a lot of soccer growing up, and I really attribute that to the success I had in football, just the foot speed and being able to run and then the catching and the athletic ability just was God given and just, DNA. And so, we're able to have some success, and it was fun. My time at Country Day was fun. I mean, we had a lot of success, and we had a great time doing it.
You sure did. Javin, after high school, you live out every kid's fantasy, at least where I grew up, and you ran out of that tunnel and you played football for the Fighting Irish. And you didn't just run out of that tunnel. You had a great career at Notre Dame. As a matter of fact, in 2001, you led the team in receiving yards and receptions. You also played basketball at Notre Dame for a little while. I think people may forget that, but you were a basketball player at Notre Dame as well. Just talk to me about your time at Notre Dame, how special that university is, and maybe some of your highlights from.
Yeah, so I chose Notre Dame on the strength of Urban Meyer. Really, I didn't really know much about Notre Dame. I didn't follow. I was never a lifelong fan of Notre Dame. Obviously, growing up here in Michigan, but Urban Meyer kind of sold me a dream, and I chose Notre Dame. He was the receiver coach then. It was an amazing recruiter. Sold me a dream of being Rocket Ismail at Notre Dame and catching a whole bunch of balls. Obviously, that didn't happen. Not his fault. It wasn't his fault. He wasn't the head coach, but I'm not going to get into that. But we didn't pass the ball as much as I would have liked. But we had some success. We went to 2 bowl games, played in the Gator Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl, and was able to catch some balls my senior year. I got hurt. I missed like 5 games my junior year, so that hurt me. But senior year we caught some balls. I led the team with 37 receptions. So that tells you how much we were passing the ball when I led with 37 grabs. But, my time at Notre Dame, obviously Notre Dame, the tradition and running out that tunnel, as you mentioned, was amazing. Amazing. People are diehard Notre Dame fans. You either love them or, you either love us or hate us. And it was a great experience and was able to parlay that into, playing in the NFL and being drafted by the Ravens. But my time at Notre Dame, I grew up. I had my son my senior year, my oldest son, and so it was a period that I am fond of and got my degree, and so I'm very fond of my time at Notre Dame.
And Javin, were there other schools that you considered? Was it Notre Dame all the way, or were you close to going to a different school at that time?
Yes, to tell you the truth, I was a night's sleep from going to, and this is be a little surprised, but North Carolina, University of North Carolina. I fell in love with Chapel Hill. This is the period when Dre Bly was there, Jeff Saturday was there. You see him on TV, and so they had a great year in '97, I believe it was. They played in a big bowl game and. I just love North Carolina, man, and I was about to go there. I love North Carolina because of Michael Jordan, but I was obviously played football and try to play both there. And I was a night's sleep from going there. But the coach left, Mac Brown left, and I think they hired Torbush, I think, and I didn't know enough about him, and I was like, let me go to Notre Dame. But I had a bunch of schools. I had Michigan State, I had Penn State. Florida State, and I think that was it. My last 5 schools that I was choosing from.
So what was North Carolina's basketball team like then? Because that mid-'90s, they were really good, right?
Oh yeah, they were tough. I think that was around the time Vince Carter, right there when I was in high school. Vince Carter and Rasheed Wallace. I think I went to a basketball game on my visit. And so that kind of, got me into it as well. And then they had some guys, I don't know if you remember Ronald Curry and Julius.
He was like player of the year in football and basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. So those guys would have been in my recruiting class, had I decided to go to North Carolina. But there's one school that I wish I would have took a visit to, and that was Florida State. Because Florida State had Peter Warwick then and Lavernius Coles and those guys, and I just didn't take a visit. I didn't want to go that far down south. But as I, being an adult and being older, like I wish I would have did that. But, it is what it is. I had a great time at Notre Dame.
Javin, I played against Peter Warwick in the Arena League, and I kind of brag about the fact that I had a better game, but he beat us 70-13. I don't talk about that very much.
Peter Warwick, man, he's got to be probably top 10 receivers of all time in college football. He's got to be. I mean, he had a great career in college.
Oh yeah, he was phenomenal. Javin, you talked a little bit about the NFL. So in 2002, you're a 6th-round draft pick, and you had a really good rookie season. As a matter of fact, you had multiple starts, you scored multiple touchdowns. But one touchdown I want to talk to you about is a 99-yard kick return you had against the Jets. Can you just talk to me a little bit about that kick return, what you remember about it, some of your emotions, and a little bit about your time in the NFL for the Ravens and the 49ers?
Yeah, that was, the kick return was during my rookie year, and obviously, playing on special teams, you want to make an impact, and then me being a 6th-round draft pick, I would have to kind of make my impact on special teams to start, and the team had a lot of confidence in me and put me back there, and I was able to bring it back. And that was an exciting time. My family was there. It was my first big play in the NFL, and I really felt that I belonged. I had a lot of confidence going in. I thought I was better than a 6th-round draft pick. I mean, I knew I was, but I just didn't have the stats at Notre Dame to warrant that, being a higher pick. So I just tried to do my best and make my way on kick return and punt return, and then also on offense. And I think I was able to do that my rookie year. And my time in the NFL was amazing. I think, the first, preseason game was a night game. And, I saw Ray Lewis, he did his dance. They turned the lights out. You got smoke coming out and fireworks. I was like, this is the NFL. And it was amazing. And it kind of set in. And then you just get ready to play. The adrenaline was flowing, and it was an exciting time. And I look back at my time in the NFL, although it was short. I have a lot of memories, a lot of good friends, and I'm currently working with the NFL, NFLPA and the trust right now. So just staying connected to the league and staying connected to guys is a passion of mine.
And Javin, what was the bigger leap? Was it going from high school to college, Notre Dame, or Notre Dame to the NFL? What was more of a jaw drop?
No question, high school to college. I didn't know. I barely knew what cover 2 was going into college, man. I was just running around making catches.
Your dad would want that.
right, exactly. Yeah, I didn't know coverages, and I had to spend a lot of time with Urban Meyer, with him being on me and studying and watching film. I didn't know much as a rookie. I was even as a freshman, and I was able to play as a freshman. Like, I think my sixth game, but it took a lot to get there. I didn't know anything, and so definitely the leap from high school to college was the most challenging.
Well, Javin, and you talked a little bit about trust captain. You're currently working with the NFL, and you are a trust captain. So you're working with former NFL players and kind of helping them a little bit with life after football. Can you talk to me a little bit about the role of trust captain, kind of what that entails, and how'd you get involved with the program?
Absolutely. So I got involved. I went to a Ravens entrepreneurship summit. I was, thinking about, opening a business, and it was a outreach specialist there, Shania Richburg, who thought I would be a great fit for the role. And I interviewed and, became a trust captain in, 2 years ago, 2 years ago in August. And so, what we do is just try to help, former NFL players transition away from the league, giving them all the support and benefits and resources they need to move past the league, because it's definitely a challenge, right? You have the situations where the identity crisis on, what am I going to do in my next phase of life? Who am I? And so we try to help make that transition easier. We have a lot of resources for guys. You go back to school. We have entrepreneurship summits for former players, and it's just a lot of things that we have that guys need to take use of, and we try to give them all the support they need to move forward.
Well, Javin, that's absolutely phenomenal. You got to be the busiest parent that I've ever met. Your son Jaden is a top 100 player in the NBA. He plays for the Pistons. Your son Jordan is the best high school basketball player in the state of Virginia. You are all over the place. Can you just talk about Jaden and Jordan, and talk to me a little bit about how many frequent flyer miles are you getting over the course of the year following those guys in Detroit and Virginia?
Yeah. They definitely keep me on my toes. I'm moving around a lot, but I feel extremely blessed that the kids are having the success that they are having. Jaden started it off, and he's hurt right now, but he's coming. He's gonna come back probably end of this month or early December. Um, but following them around and just being a father to them and trying to be a support to them and whatever they do is what I'm here for. And so I'm extremely proud of the success that they're having, and I'm just trying to keep up with them, as you mentioned.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I feel like I just have to talk about this a little bit. We had the opportunity to play a couple times in high school. And there was a game that we played, which was our senior year, and it was at Detroit Country Day. And we're up 6 points with about 50 seconds left in the game. And literally everybody knows in the stadium that they're going to throw the football to you. I think you had 180 yards and 2 touchdowns already in the game. So we take our best corner and our best safety and say, whatever you do, don't let Javin run past you. What do? You run past him, score the 60-yard touchdown, and if you don't miss an extra point, you guys win that game. We end up winning in overtime. But I remember what my coach said. My coach said, you know what? We're going to see that guy playing in the NFL. That was the first time I had ever been in a high school football game where I was confident that I had just seen an NFL football player.
Oh, man, I appreciate that. I'm telling you what. Whatever your coach was saying, our coach was saying about you. Because, I mean, we had to stop you. I mean, I think you had 220 yards against us every time we played. I think 3 years in a row, you had probably over at least 180 to 200 yards against us. And so we had to stop you, man. That was our challenge. But, I appreciate you saying that, man. Junior year you beat us pretty bad, but senior year we knew what we had to do, and like you said, it came down to an extra point that we missed. But it was a great game. You guys always were very super competitive, and I love playing you guys.
Well, Javin, I appreciate you being on the show so much, taking time out to speak to us, and nothing but the absolute best of luck.
No, man, same to you. It was a pleasure talking to you, man. We'll keep in touch. Thank you for having me on.
All right, thank you,
Javin.
Thank you so much, Javin.
All right, guys, take care.
Joining the show, a 4-time national championship winning coach at Grand Valley State, a 7-time state championship head coach for Grand Rapids Catholic Central, Todd Kolster. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, that's the last time I'm going to call you Todd because I don't feel right doing it because you were my football coach. Coach, you're one of the greatest football coaches in Michigan history. I know you're not the kind of guy to talk about that, but you have 7 state championships. But I want to take you back to kind of where you got things started at Grand Valley State. You win 4 national championships at Grand Valley State. In 2004, you become the offensive coordinator. You proceed to lead that team to 40 straight wins from 2005 to 2007. It's still a Division II record. You're also the quarterback coach for the winningest college football quarterback in the history of the NCAA. Cullen Finity until this year, he was 51-4 as a starter. Can you just talk to me a little bit about your time at Grand Valley and all the success you had working with Brian Kelly and Chuck Martin?
Yeah, no, it's you're right. I actually really started with Dean Krebs at Hope College, and I think you guys know him, and I know Brent, you do it a little bit, and he's the one who really got me into coaching, to be quite honest. And then I had Scott Tompkins, who was the basketball coach at East Grand Rapids, and Scott, I think, is one of the best coaches I've ever been around to this day. And then I worked with Peter Sturzma too. And Peter was got me connected with old Brian Kelly. And so I'll never forget meeting with Brian about the job and coming out there and met you back in the day. And then, I think Paul Sambita was coaching. I remember him. And then he left, and then I took over the running backs and got a chance to work with what I still think are the greatest running backs in that school's history, to be honest with you. You and Reggie and Mike and, Blake Smolin and Brandon Langston. I mean, we had a string of guys led by you and Reggie and then Mike after you guys. And then, Brandon and Smolin. I think those are some of the best guys ever. So, You know, it was really cool, Brent. If you remember your freshman and sophomore year, you guys at Grand Valley weren't as much spread. We weren't as much no huddle and all that stuff. And when I got there, that's really when we switched offensively. Todd Monken, who's the offensive coordinator with the Baltimore Ravens, he was the guy that came, if you remember that year, your junior year in the spring ball, he was at a
Yep.
lot of our practices, and he's kind of where we got spread, no huddle, and we knew we had talent with all you guys and everything else, and we had to change. We had to do something different than what had been done the previous 2 years with all the talent that you guys had, and so we did that, and that's where I kind of learned a lot of the offensive things right at that point. And so, and I'll never forget, you know, with old BK, you know, just, you know, going into that. And man, we had some great coaches: Jeff Quinn, John Jancic, Chuck Martin. You know, we had Jimmy Williams was coaching the one year, your junior year. You know, and then he went to Toledo and then Nebraska, so he was on a fast track. You know. And Greg Forrest, G Money, you know, and so we had a great group of guys, and then obviously your class was a big leader of kind of what Grand Valley football really developed into, and kind of set the standard. You know, your junior year, we go to the national championship, and lost there in the last couple seconds, and your kick return put us in field goal range to tie it, but I got called back. I still claim Todd Christensen was calling the game on ESPN. He said we got hosed. He came in the coach's box. We were all in the coach's box, and he came storming in there at the break and said, there's no way that was a hold, you know. So I still remember those things clear as day. But that's really where I was fortunate to get started with those guys. And then when Brian Kelly went to Central, a few of us had some options to go with him or stay, and I decided to stay with Chuck, and Chuck is a good friend and was I think one of the best coaches I've ever seen. Still to this day, the guy can coach any position. He calls offense, he calls defense. I mean, he went to Notre Dame. He's working on the defensive side of the football. The next year, he's the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. They go to the national championship, and then he leaves to go to Miami. I mean, how many people have ever done that? You know, I mean, so anyway, so that's how I kind of got to start. So it was kind of crazy, and so we went to 5 national championships in those years and won 4 of them. Your junior year was the one tough one that we had, right? You know, and then we had some other ones. So yeah, it was great, and just awesome guys, man.
Yeah, for sure. And I have a Todd Munkett story because he was at Eastern Michigan, and they were kind of recruiting me pretty hard. But he said that he would put me on his little man board. You know, they recruit like one little man a year at Eastern Michigan. But Todd was a great dude. He came to my house probably like 3 times, and he really wanted me. Unfortunately, and fortunately for Grand Valley, it worked out. I ended up going to Grand Valley.
Yeah. No, but yeah, that's where we got a ton of our offensive stuff was from Todd Monken. And so Brian had a relationship with him because he was a graduate assistant at Grand Valley way back in the day. And then Chuck Martin worked with him at Eastern Michigan. And so those 2 guys, their whole staff got let go. And Todd Monken was the one that called Brian to help get Chuck on because he knew Chuck was looking for a defensive backs coach. And then, you know, and Chuck and Todd Monken to this day, I think, are still very good friends. And Mike Gundy, those guys still, you know, do some things together. And so, so it was cool. I mean, when I took over as the offensive coordinator, I spent a lot of time, you know, whenever Todd Monken was in town. He's a Chicago guy too, like Chuck Martin was. And so we you know, Chuck would go and I'd go with Chuck a few times and met Todd when he was at home in Chicago, and we just spend the day and talk football. And it's still some of the greatest football memories I have, just because, you know, I think those guys are unbelievably smart football minds, you know.
And so, Coach, between college and high school, you have 11 championships, which is crazy. So that's an awful lot of hardware. Do you have a place in your house that you keep this stuff? Do you have a shelf, or is it like a safe that you put this in? Like, where do you store these things?
You know what? I really don't have a lot of that stuff. I mean, I'm not a huge memorabilia guy. I do have a lot of memories, obviously, in my head, and but I do have a case. I do have one case on my dresser that's got championship rings in it, and between conference championships and college and stuff, and obviously national and state. It's a pretty good sized box. So yeah,
And
it's
do you
nice.
ever break the ring out? Do you ever wear a ring anywhere? Is there
You
ever
know
an
what?
occasion?
Not a lot. I think sometimes
I
going
know
to
you're
Grand
not.
Valley, going to the Grand Valley stuff maybe sometimes, but
Yeah.
yeah, not a lot. Or if we have an event here with a lot of our kids that played here for us at Catholic Central, sometimes I'll wear them. But yeah, I haven't worn one in quite some time. I can tell you that.
Well, Coach, you got a lot to choose from, and you can match it up with your wardrobe if you need to. Coach, there's a couple things that are guaranteed in life, okay? Death, taxes, and Grand Rapids Catholic Central. Winning a state championship with you as the head coach when you have an opportunity to win one. You are 7-0 in state championship games. That is just incredible. Can you talk to me a little bit about your program and what makes Grand Rapids Catholic Central so special?
Yeah, I'll tell you, you're right. It's a really special place. I think it's a place that I was fortunate enough to be at, and again, I don't know that there are too many places like it. It's really unique because it's a small community that's pretty tight knit that believes in a lot of the values that I believe in terms of hard work and preparations in life and in football and in any other sport kids play, but believe in the just leadership within the community, the school, academics, life. Like we have great players and we have a great community. Do we have tons of great college prospects and all this kind of stuff? Not really. We never really have. We've had a few, no question. But they're just great people. I think sometimes people overlook, and you guys hear it all the time, the public versus private debate, and we recruit and all this stuff. It's a bunch of garbage. Like the bottom line is we're good because of our families. Our families are really committed. If you want to talk what the difference is between private schools and public schools, I think by and large, you see more committed families in private schools than you do in public. I'm not knocking public schools. I went to public school. I also went to private school when I was younger, but when I went to high school, I went to a public school. But I think what you're seeing today is you're seeing more, families that are more committed and bought into, okay, if my kid's struggling in school, the parents are there to get help. If the kid's struggling to work hard in the weight room, the parents are going to know about it. The kid's struggling hard in baseball or football or basketball or lacrosse or whatever, the parents are going to know about it and they want to help the kid out. It's not necessarily they want to blame the coach or point the finger at the coach. They want to figure out how can they help their kid be more successful. And so sometimes I think that's the part that really gets overlooked in all of this stuff is at our school, that's what we have. We do some things. We ask a lot of our kids, but in turn, when you're in high school, as you guys know, that's a lot. We're asking a lot of parents too. It's not college football, it's, these kids need rides. They need meals. They need, we're not with them all the time like we were in college. The reality is most of the time they're with their families and stuff, which is where they should be. But that's very different. And so when you have parents like we have that are so committed to, doing, hey, if the coach thinks this is the best thing, then this is what we're going to try and do as a family. And so that's what I have. I have families like that if we believe as coaching staff that, this is what it takes, the parents do everything in their power to make sure their kids are there and ready to go. And then I think, I always say this, like football, it's not rocket science, right? But you got to have great people around you. Like my assistant coaches that we've had there since I've been there are as good as it gets, Brent, Terry Mitchell, played for us
Oh,
at
yeah.
Grand Valley. So
Yep.
T. Mitch has been on our staff for a long time. John Vandenberg came as a student assistant at Grand Valley right after you left, Brent, and then so now he's been with me for a long time. You got guys like that. Joel Pasquinel has been at Catholic Central for over 30 years. The guy is as good as it gets. I mean, Connor LaFear's been there 8 years, and Kyle Shelton is as good a person as there is. So like we just got great guys. They're great men that, they're great examples for these kids. And so when you start talking about all those pieces, that people want to always know, okay, well, what's the secret? What's the secret? There's no scheme in football that's more important than that stuff, and especially at high school level. So that's where we've really been successful is our assistant coaches are great people first. They're great men, and then they're really good examples. I think it's really important to teach these guys how to be young men. I think we're forgetting that at times in the real world, and so I think it's important to teach them that. That's really kind of the backbone of what we really talk about with our kids and our program, and our parents appreciate it. Our school administration's awesome. We got a president, a principal, we got athletic director. We got, great people that support us and, support all of our coaches, all of our kids. We're a school of 550 kids. Our kids need to play other sports. And that's the part I really like too, is they got to play basketball. They got to wrestle. They got to play baseball. They got to run track, play lacrosse, whatever it is. It's not about just playing football. And I think too often that's what it's starting to become that way. And I don't think that's right, and because the simple reality is there just aren't that many college prospects out there at the high level. You know what I mean? And so I think all these kids they play one sport because they think, oh, they're going to get a scholarship and all this kind of stuff. And the reality of it is that's just such a small chance. I mean, if you play Division III, which doesn't offer scholarships, you're in the top 94% of high school football players in the entire country, because only about 6.4% of high school football players in the country play Division I, II, or III. So if you're even to go play at Hope College or Kalamazoo or Albion or, these places, the MIAA, which is mostly interstate, as you guys know, like you're in the top 94% in the country. That's pretty, if somebody would have told me, hey, we would have gotten you and me, Brent, we would have got ACT scores in the top 94%. Our parents would have fallen over,
We'd be pumped.
So no, I think sometimes that stuff's overlooked, but I think the reality is our kids are set up for success because of our families and our community. And that's really the big thing.
And before, Coach, we jump into your game this week, the transition from Grand Valley, you win 4 national championships, and you go to the high school level and coach at Grand Rapids. What was that transition like for you, going from a really successful college team to coaching at the high school level?
So it was good. I left Grand Valley. I loved it there. I love Chuck Martin, think the world of him. Chuck and I had a conversation. I had gotten married, and my wife we just found out was pregnant with our first child. And so, I had a couple opportunities to take some MAC jobs. And, if you go to the MAC, you're on the merry-go-round. And so, my question was, do I really want to do that with just being married and a kid on the way? And, we live in West Michigan, which is a really nice place to live and grow up and have a family. So I thought, Chuck and I talked, what would I do if I wasn't coaching college football? And, I said, probably a high school athletic director. And so it happened that the Catholic Central athletic director job opened in July. And so I had some people that knew people here, so came down and met with them and talked about it. So I actually came here as the athletic director first, and I wasn't coaching football. And that was a unique experience, not coaching football for the first time in a long time. And I did that for 2 years, and then our football coach left and took another job. And when we were kind of going through the search process and everything else, some people had asked me if I would do it and look at it. And so I did, and our school was in a different place at that time. So I did. So I did it, and then that's kind of the rest is history. But, you know, it's really not different. Coaching is coaching. I don't care if you're coaching the 5th grade Burger King team, or if you're, if you're coaching high school, or if you're coaching college, or you're coaching pros. Coaching is coaching. I think it's all the other stuff outside of it. It's meetings. It's the availability of time with people. That's the difference. When you're in the NFL and when you're in college, you're around people a lot more. You're with them a lot more, whether you're traveling with them, a couple days in advance of a game or any of that stuff. In high school, you got these guys for a couple hours after school, and then they go home, and then they're in school all day, and then it's the same thing over and over. And then the off season, they're going to play another sport, and you try and get them in the weight room as much as you can, because that's the big thing that they need nowadays. But that's really it. That's the big difference. But I mean, Brent, if you watch our offense to this day, you're going to see some of the same plays you ran.
Oh, Coach, I do. Every time I watch it, I'm like, that play looks familiar. Every single time I watch you guys.
Because we run a lot of the same stuff. People say, well, how do high school kids, can they learn it? Kids will learn whatever you emphasize. They'll learn whatever you ask them to learn, And so we do. A lot of our passing game, a lot of that stuff is similar to what we ran at Grand Valley back in the day.
Wow, that is incredible, and I have definitely picked up on that. Coach, you got West Catholic on Friday. Obviously, I feel like you guys meet every year early in the playoffs. Whenever you guys are in the same division, that is always a tough matchup. This one's built as number 1 versus number 2 in the state. I know you probably don't want to hear that, but that's kind of what it is. It's a very good football team. They've won a lot of state championships. They also have a guy on their football team that coaches the defensive side of the ball. He's a defensive coordinator, Darren Smith. I played with him at Grand Valley. You coached him. Can you just talk about this football team, some of the challenges that they present for your football team, and what do you guys need to do on Friday night in order to be successful?
Yeah, they're really good, really good, and I have a ton of respect for them. And Landon Grove is their head coach, and he's a really good young coach. Played at Ferris, Brent. He was a good player up at Ferris State. Played for Coach Anise up there, and then D. Smitty, on the defensive side of things, as we were talking earlier off air. I think D. Smitty's a tremendous coach. And he does a great job with defense, and he understands things really well. And so they're really prepared. I think sometimes people look at West Catholic, Catholic Central, and they look at this like, oh, this big division, and like, oh, people don't like each other, all this kind of stuff. I always say it's kind of funny, and I have a different perspective because I didn't go to Catholic or West Catholic, but man, there's so many similarities between our two schools and between our two communities, far more similarities than there are differences. You know what I mean? And so some of the things I talked about and why they're successful are the same reasons why we're successful. They have really committed families. They have really committed kids. They have really committed coaches. Darren's been there a long time. I mean, D. Smitty's been there a long time. He's been there with a couple different coaches, and Landon's come in and picked up and on the tradition, and brought some of his own fire and everything to the program. And so they're really good. They've got some talented big kids up front. They've got a quarterback that I think is outstanding. He can really throw the ball. And they've got some nice pieces on the perimeter that their running backs really run hard. I mean, they're good. And so it's just been a battle because I think we've been good and they've been good. And so it's unfortunate that we got to play this early, no question about it. But that is what it is. We're not changing that, so I can't change it. So we don't worry about it. But because I think we're 2 of the top teams in the state. But that's how it goes. So I'm looking forward to the challenge. I'm looking forward to seeing our guys really kind of step up, because it is, I mean, if you've never been there in person, guys, like it's it's phenomenal. Like the kids, how hard these kids play. You know what I mean? And last year we beat them. We're down. We're out. People are counting us out. There's 28 seconds to go, and they're punting the ball to us with no timeouts, and we block a punt all the way down to the 12-yard line, and then throw a touchdown pass with 12 seconds left or something, and so just a really crazy scenario that happened. And it's one of those things. Obviously, I feel great for our kids and finding a way to never give up. And then you feel bad for the kids at West, because I know how hard they worked, and that's a really tough way to go out. But that's the game. That's what makes it so great. You know what I mean? We've been on the other side of that. We've lost some games that maybe we could have won and didn't. So, but no, it's a great game. It's an awesome atmosphere, and the kids on the field are great. I think that's the part that's good. The kids on the field fight, they compete, they battle, they do it the right way. Like, it's tough football. It's hard hitting. There's no one on that field that will shy away from contact on Friday night. You know what I mean? Guys make plays. It's really good to see, like, as a fan of football and how things are supposed to be done. I actually kind of enjoy it, kind of watching it. You know what I mean? As a coach, you start to get frustrated at some things when we don't do some things well. But there is a reality that, as good as West Catholic is they force you to do some things bad, just that's reality. So, but no, it's going to be a great night. It's a great environment. And I know our team, our coaches have a lot of respect for them and their coaching staff and their kids. And I believe that Landon and his group does too. So, but and we just go battle it out, and it's a good time.
Yeah, and Coach, quickly, I feel like you always have a really good quarterback at Grand Rapids Catholic Central that can throw the football, that can run the football. You have another one this year in Odin Spencer. He does a little bit of everything. He's a junior. Can you talk about him a little bit? Not so much his play on the field, but what does he bring in the leadership room, the leadership department?
Yeah, Odin's a sophomore, actually, and he started last year as a freshman. So he's kind of been through this. He started in this game last year over at West Catholic in a tough environment. And so Odin is as gifted as a kid as I've ever had here. And Brent, like, I put him up in the category with you guys, like coaching you guys back in the day, just competitive, tough, you motivated him by just saying, hey, like, is this really your best? Is this really who you're at? Like, you're going to let yourself play like this, and that, like, there was no way you were going to let yourself play that way. You know what I mean? And Odin is the same way. Like, he from a leadership standpoint, he's really talking a lot more. He's a quiet kid by nature, but really, really competitive. Sometimes quiet kids, people don't think they're competitive. You know what I mean? He's competitive, and he's finding his voice more and more with this team. And I think his just how hard he runs, how hard he plays, he wants to do everything right. He wants to help us win any way he can. If he's got to run it, if he's got to throw it, if he's got to hand it off, if that's what it means to win, he'll do it. If you need him to play defense, he'll do it, or whatever. So I think people recognize that, and he's really stepped up this year. And I mean, I think he's as talented as a quarterback as there is in the state in his class, for sure.
Wow, that says a lot. Coach, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it, and the best of luck on Friday in the playoff game.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's always great to see you. I'll always be there for you. So I appreciate you. You mentioned these records, and we have records like this because of players like you. So I appreciate you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Coach. I appreciate that. I'll be in touch throughout the playoffs, and let's go get number 8.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, talk to you later, Coach.
Good luck, Coach. Thank you.
Joining the show, the host of Friday Football Tailgates. She also works for NBC Sports in Chicago as an anchor, Kacy Standohar. Kacy, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, it's good to be back, and I love this new show you guys are doing. It's great.
Well, thanks, Kacy, for joining us. And obviously, I'm usually on the other side of things. So
Yes, you're in my ear. You're behind the scenes.
Yeah, but I feel like
Can you see this?
I feel
Where
like
are you,
Ken
Ken?
Beats. I feel like I've done, I've held my own, filling in for Ken. But so obviously we've worked on Friday Football Tailgate together. We wrapped up our season a couple weeks ago. Just talk about, your favorite memory looking back on this last season that we had. Friday Football is the reason we have this podcast. It's our high school football pregame show. You and Brent work closely on that. So just kind of reflect on what those 5 games were like for you.
Well, first of all, it's so fun to be a part of. I mean, I know, Ryan, it was like your brainchild, right? Like this whole thing. Now we've had 2 great seasons. And I think this past season, we really grew as a team. Our chemistry was even better. Our crowds were even bigger. And I think one of the highlights for me was going to Omaha, because it was like we took this show further than we've ever taken it. And we had a great crowd. We had a great response. That was a huge, huge stadium that we were at. I mean, it felt like a college football stadium. And just the teams were big. I mean, it was just awesome to be a part of that and know that we could take the show on the road and still make it happen. And I think there was so much leading up to it that people don't even see. Like, Joel drove me 8+ hours just to get there. And like, we were having a great time in the car. And just the way that we kind of come together to make those happen is my favorite part about it. And then seeing kind of the fruits of our labor when the crowd's there and everyone's having a good time and we're kind of all clicking. That's like the coolest part to me.
And, you guys a lot of times will, we'll be setting things up and you guys will either usually be in an RV, but we've had a press box, we had the canopy at the last show. We just kind of work within the space that we've got. But what is, and Brent can kind of talk through this too, but the first thing you notice sometimes when you step out of an RV and you're going to the stage and everything's set up, you got crowds there. What's the first thing that you notice? What hits you first?
That's such a good question. Gosh, I think it's just seeing the people, like seeing that there's kids running around and there's families having a good time. And then I'm also a sucker for like the good music. So like if the stadium's playing good music, if you guys are playing good music with our truck and everything involved, with Randy, like just I love that. I love that. Kind of gets me like going, gets my vibes high. And that's when I kind of get that adrenaline rush knowing we're about to be on the air in like less than 5 minutes. So I'm thinking music, I'm thinking cheerleaders, I'm looking at the crowd, and I'm just getting really psyched.
I love it. And then, just your background a little bit. You've covered high school sports, you've covered college, you're covering NFL. What got you into broadcasting? I mean, what drew us to you was the reel that you had. I mean, you've done so much cool work. So I think the chemistry that you have with Brent and Ken, I think it's been working out so well. But what drew you into this industry?
Well, thank you. It's nice to know that my reel, like sometimes you put stuff out there like that and you never know who it's going to reach or who's going to notice you or if it's even good. And so it's really, when you guys found me, I was really grateful and excited and just honored and just glad that like hard work had paid off, So I appreciate that, first of all. And just, I got into the business because I loved writing. I loved sports. I grew up watching Cleveland sports with my dad. I mean, we grew up big Browns fans, which is a rough life. We grew up, Cavs fans, Indians, now Guardians fans. And that was a big part of my childhood, was watching my brother play sports, watching Cleveland sports with my dad and my mom and dad, and even watching like golf. Every year we'd have like a big party for the British Open. Like now they just call it the Open. But, sports are always a big part of our lives. And when I went to school, I thought I wanted to become a teacher and teach like English or writing. And my mom, who is the teacher for 30 years, was like, don't do it. It's not the way it used to be. Like, don't go into teaching. And I was like, okay, well, what do I want to do? And so I wasn't sure. And then I kind of was like, oh, I can still apply my love for writing and sports, but do it in this way and study journalism and learn how to be a good writer, good reporter, good editor, good producer. And so That's when I went to Youngstown State and studied journalism. And I think at first I really, really wanted to be like a print journalist. I wanted to like write for a magazine or a newspaper like the Chicago Tribune. And around the time I graduated, like that world was kind of shifting and going away, not going away, but it was changing, right? Like social media was becoming bigger and bigger. And Instagram had just come out, and people were doing more digitally and on TV than they were in print. And so I took an internship at a local station in Youngstown, Ohio, and I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. Like TV is where it's at. And so that's kind of how it started. And then it just sort of evolved from there.
Kacy, when you're doing live sports, right, there isn't any retakes. You kind of got to get the job done the first time. What's one thing that people might not realize about working in live sports television?
Oh, that's a good question, Brant. I think people don't realize that like no one's really helping you. I mean, Ryan's in my ear a lot of the times, like kind of saying like, hey, we're going to go here next, or ask one more question, or maybe ask him this question, which is extremely helpful. But that's kind of a rarity. I mean, a lot of times when I'm out in the field, like no one's in my ear. The only thing I'm hearing is someone saying, you got 10 seconds left, or 5 seconds until you, or whatever. And so you have to know your stuff, right? You have to be prepared on the teams. You have to at least have a good, catch-all question in case you run out of time or need to fill more time. And it's kind of off the cuff, and you have to kind of pivot when things go wrong. We know that. We do it a lot with our show when the wrong guest comes up at the wrong time, or we're kind of like trying to fill, or that's live TV. And that's happening everywhere. That's happening on College Game Day, right? Like you have to pivot and be ready for anything. And so I think a lot of people think like that someone's just feeding all these lines to you, or that you're always reading off a prompter, and you're not. And in the studio, I do read off a prompter, but it's stuff I wrote, it's stuff I put together and made in my own voice. So I think people don't realize that like you can't just be like, oh, can I start over? Never mind. Like you can't do that. You kind of just have to like adjust. And I remember I was reading like the Blackhawks schedule one day on the air, and I was struggling. Like I kept saying like the team's wrong and which game was home and which game was away. And it was like, it sounded like I had like a stroke on the air. I didn't, but like I just had to recover and be like, I'm so sorry. You know what I mean? And so stuff like that happens. And I think it's important to remember that people are human, and the words don't always come out perfectly in our day-to-day lives. And so, I think it's just, we're just people trying to do our best. And sometimes the prompter stops midway through, and you kind of have to read off your paper or kind of remember what you were going to say. And so it's not always easy.
Yeah. And now, I mean, you mentioned Cleveland. You're a sports anchor in like the best sports city in the world.
It's questionable.
They're not always. It doesn't mean they're successful, but you're working with the Bears, the Cubs. Like, I mean, what is that like? What's the experience been like for you to be doing work at that level? I mean, I had a friend message me a few weeks ago saying, "Isn't this the host for Friday Football Tailgate?" And it was a screen grab, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's Kacy. We're cool." Yeah, but it's. Do you have to pinch yourself sometimes? I know you're on the journey still, but like, what's it like?
Definitely have to pinch myself. Because years ago, Kate, if you told me I was doing that, I'd be like, stop. Like, what do you mean? So it is really cool to be able to go to every Bears home game. I've been to some away games too, but I do cover every Bears home game. And it's such an adrenaline rush to be up in the press box, to then go down to the locker room after the game and interview Caleb Williams and interview Tremaine Edmonds and interview Kyle Monangai and talk to these guys. And it's not easy. I mean, especially after a loss, you're in this locker room where half the guys, to be honest, are still changing and showering, and they're in towels, and you're like, I don't know where to look. Like, it's very like odd, and it's like, sometimes it's like bad energy because they don't want to talk, right? Like they're annoyed that they just lost a big game. And so you're navigating like, who do I go over to? Who do I talk to? How long are they going to talk? Oh crap. Cole Kmet's done, showering. Let's go talk to him. Like, and so you kind of have to like pivot all around the locker room, and you're climbing over like people's gear and stuff. And it's not very glamorous, but it is really cool to have that access, to be able to get closer to these guys and learn more about them and create, those relationships and build trust. But it's a gamble. It's a crapshoot. And it's like, who has the mic at the right time? And sometimes you ask a guy afterward, hey, can you talk to me for 3 minutes for just a one-on-one, and sometimes they're like, yeah, sure, and sometimes they don't want to. And so it's harder in the pros because you have to navigate like the media and the other people around you and the scrum style interviews. And when the Cubs lost the in the NLDS, it was sad, right? Like it was crushing, and those guys didn't want to talk. And when they did talk, season was over, and they had to process that really fast with us, and that was hard for them. And so of course we always want to be there for winning moments and those like cool, exciting times, but there's the flip side of it too. So I love it, getting to cover the Bulls play-in game last year, getting to cover the Bears doing well this year, the Cubs making a playoff run. Like, it is really cool. And so I feel really lucky to be doing it in Chicago.
Well, Kacy, one of my favorite things that you do is the DePaul Blue Demons room, where you interview different coaches and different players, and you talk to them about, different things going on. That is really intriguing to me. I've had a chance to watch that a few times. Can you just talk a little bit about that show? It's kind of really cool how they bring everything together and you ask the questions. Can you just talk to me a little bit about that and what makes that, I believe it's a podcast, right? Yeah, what makes that podcast so special, and just talking with the coaches and the players?
Yeah, it's kind of like what you guys are doing, right? Like it's, weekly, bi-weekly, whenever we can get it in, and it's video and audio. So it's on Spotify, Apple, and it's also on YouTube. And it's a great place for students, alumni, coaches to be able to tell their story and for people to learn more about DePaul athletics. And so our next episode's coming out soon is Chris Holtman, the men's basketball coach. He's great. Like, he was one of our first guests last year. And I think it's really cool to have access to a Big East basketball team in our backyard. I mean, Big East basketball is like king, right? So, they want to get back to like the UConns of the world, the Dan Hurleys of the world, and be great. And I think DePaul has the resources and the ability to do that this year, or at least soon. They're growing, they're rebuilding. So he was a great guest. We have a lot of student athletes on. We're trying to get more alumni on, like Mark Aguirre, and just people that have went to DePaul who are, have had great careers and are in the Hall of Fame. And so it's been great. I added a co-host this year, my friend Jenna. So it's great to have her to riff off of because she went to DePaul. So she has like that Chicago element that I don't possess. And so it's good to kind of have both energies there, and we love doing it. We have a space similar to what you guys are doing. We have like couches, chairs, and mics, and we just kind of talk. And I think there's not a lot of other Big East schools that are doing that. So we're kind of setting the precedent and setting the tone for, extra content that people crave.
Well, if I can recommend a guest, it's a guy by the name of Wilson Chandler. He played at Benton Harbor. He was a superstar. He was an All-American in high school. He played in the NBA for a long time. He was a phenomenal basketball player from our local area right here. I think that would be a great guest on the show, Kacy.
I love it. That is a good idea. We'll have to get him on. But, it's just fun because we get to kind of shed more light on what DePaul is doing. And we've had a lot of great people, like the golf coach and a golfer, and, some of the people on the track team. Like, there's a lot of great athletes right in Lincoln Park. So it's pretty fun.
And so, Kacy, just as we kind of wrap up here, a couple hypotheticals. I'm not Ken Dietz. Like I'm like, what would Ken ask here? All right, if you could host if you could cover a major sporting event, what event would it be?
Oh, I think I'm definitely going World Series. I don't even care what teams. I mean, it would be cool if Cleveland was back in it, but I would love to cover the World Series. And I think my second event would be the Little League World Series, because how cool would it be to interview these kids? And
oh my gosh.
It looks like it's such a fun event. I don't know. I just think that would be really fun. So I would say baseball for sure, World Series, Little League World Series. But I'm not going to turn down like a Super Bowl, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
I would do that too, for sure.
Yeah.
Kacy, I got the most important question, and it has nothing to do with sports at all. You recently got engaged. We all want to know, when's the wedding and are we invited? Tell us about the wedding, Kacy.
Guys, I want you guys there. It's June 27th, June 27th next year in Chicago, and we're excited. I will say, guys, I'm not loving the wedding planning process right now. It's not very fun. It's very stressful. But it will be fun. We're trying to push a wedding into basically 10 months because we got engaged in September. after the Central Michigan game. Bold of my fiance to propose when they lost by 60, but it's fine. Yeah, so just like it's exciting. I would love you guys to be there. I want to do that. I'm still figuring out all the details. I mean, it's so much to think about. Like, you're trying to make sure that you can fit everyone in a venue and pick what food everyone's gonna like. And now I'm trying to find a band, and that's a whole other thing. And I don't know. A part of me is just like, I should have just eloped, went to Italy, called it all off.
I mean, it is like managing a production, that just goes on and on forever, and there's people that you don't want to work with behind the scenes. So I've been there, done that, and so I can feel your pain. But my last question for you is, past or present, any athlete, who would you interview?
Oh man, this is tough. I think I'm going Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
I would love to get in the mind of Tiger. He doesn't do a lot of interviews. He wasn't really a part of that documentary about him. And I just think he's still kind of, elusive and secretive. And I think it'd be really cool to talk to him. Someone else I would always want to interview. He's not an athlete, but I guess he was, and more of a coach, is Phil Jackson. I think he would be so entertaining to talk to. I just think he was a brilliant basketball coach and Chicago legend. So I would say Tiger and Phil.
I love it.
The architect of the triangle offense, 11 championships in the NBA. Phil Jackson. Yeah, I mean.
But no, Phil was the
guy that's the head coach has the 11 championships. Yeah. So
I think that would be so fun to sit down with him one-on-one.
Yeah.
Kacy Standohar, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Hopefully we'll see you soon. Maybe we got another tailgate coming up. Who knows? But hopefully we'll be in touch soon.
More tailgates in the future, wedding planning, all the things in the future. We got a lot to celebrate. Another season of Friday Football Tailgate, hopefully. So, guys, this was so fun. Thank you for the time. Thank you for letting me come on, and I'd love to come back. We got to do it in person too. I got to just come over there and
you got to. I mean, this is the spot.
I tried. I wanted you on the show. I got Ryan. I wanted you on the show. I tried.
You had to settle for Ryan. I get it.
I had to settle for Ryan.
No, this was fun. Thank you guys so much. This was a blast. I loved it.
Thanks, Kacy.
Thank you.
We'll see you. Bye.
Ryan just talked to me about the guests we had on the show tonight. Javin Hunter. He played for Notre Dame. He played in the NFL. He talked about his time at Notre Dame and just a little bit about all the wonderful things he's doing working as a trust captain. Then we had Todd Kolster on. All he does is win championships, 11 of them, 4 at Grand Valley, 7 at Grand Rapids Catholic Central. And then we had Kacy Standohar on, our show host for Friday Football Tailgates. She does a wonderful job in all the different things that she does.
I mean, 3 really great guests, just very humble people. I mean, 11 titles for, coach at Grand Rapids. 7 at Grand Rapids, 4 at Grand Valley. And Javin Hunter, the story about North Carolina, potentially going there to play basketball with Tar Heels that, had, some of the best players that they've ever gone through the system. So super great guy. Kacy, of course, is great, learning a little bit more about her background. I think it was really fun. I think this was the show if I'm going to host a show, this was the one, or be a co-host. So I can pick the right week for me to jump in.
He sure did. And I'll reach out to Ken and let him know he needs to get back here quickly so he doesn't lose his job. You did a wonderful job tonight, Ryan. You should be happy. I think the crowd in the background, we got a few people here. Yeah, there we go. People are excited about this tonight.
We got some hot peppers floating around back there, too.
Hey, we do got some hot peppers. I know Goob knows about that.
We're all struggling a little.
Ryan, we don't have too many matchups in the area, but we are going to do one game, and we're going to do kind of a quick pick segment, okay? We have St. Joe versus Zeeland West. We got that football game coming up this week. St. Joe coming off probably their best performance of the season. They only give up 6 points on defense. They didn't score a lot of points, but they played really well against Zeeland East. And then we got Zeeland West. All they did was beat Niles last week. Niles was 9-0 for the first time since 1979. Zeeland West is the defending state champs, but they lost 22 seniors. They graduated. All they do is win football games. Talk to me about that matchup, and who are you taking? St. Joe versus Zeeland West next week.
I think that St. Joe is healthy for the most part. Their best players are playing really well. They have nothing to lose going into this. No one expected them to get to the district final, I don't think. They're at home. They're going to have the home crowd. Their defense was great last week, like you said. 6 sacks and holding East to under 100 yards was great. I have to make a prediction, right?
You do. You have to make a prediction.
I think it's going to be one of those like Chicago Bears style scores, like when they had Urlacher and no offense. So I'm going to say it's going to be 20-12 West over St. Joe.
Yeah, and I think you're being nice because you're a St. Joe guy. I think West is going to come in. I think they're going to dominate the football game. I don't think wing T football is something that St. Joe stops very well. They give up 40 points to Edwardsburg. They're more of a defense. Spread us out. Yeah. We'll play good defense when you're trying to throw the football, but when you run the wing T, St. Joe doesn't always put its best foot forward. So I think this is going to be a very tough game for St. Joe. I'm taking Zeeland West 42-21.
Okay, you're going to give 21. St. Joe's going to get 21. All right, that's good. Okay, that's fair. I think it's going to be a little bit more. We're going to see a little bit more of St. Joe's defense from last week. Is what I think. I think they're going to be all over the place. And but yeah, if they can keep it close, again, they can pull the upset. That's all it takes.
Yeah, Ryan, I think that's the key. They have to keep it close. They can't turn the ball over. I talked about it a little bit earlier. You have to play the perfect football game in order to win. I'm just not sure St. Joe is going to be able to do that. But join us next week, Ryan. We have another great show. Ken Dietz will be back. We're excited to get Ken Dietz back. Hope everything went good with the conferences tonight. Ryan, you did a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you.
But coming up on the show next week, we have a former NBA All-Star, LaFonso Ellis. He played at Notre Dame. He's in the Ring of Honor. He'll be joining us on the show and so much more. Join us next week on Outside the Hashmarks.